right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jessica Trimble, and I am the Director of Communication and Outreach here at Indiana Disability Rights. And we are bringing you another interview today. Today, we have Amy Corbin from the Indiana ABLE Authority, and we're here to talk about ABLE accounts and COVID and stimulus payments. And all sorts of fun things that we've had to learn about in the past few months. So with that, Amy, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Thank you very much for having me here today. My name is Amy Corbin. I'm the Executive Director for the Indiana ABLE Authority. And the ABLE Authority oversees our state-sponsored ABLE savings program called Invest ABLE Indiana. And I'm very happy to be here today, so thank you for having me.
So Amy, how long have you been working in your current position with ABLE accounts?
I have been in this role for 4 years in October.
And is that around the time that ABLE accounts were established in Indiana, or how did your time at the job coincide with Indiana getting ABLE accounts?
So I started in my role right before our program, a little short time before our program became active in our state. So we're actually getting ready to come upon our anniversary at the end of this month. What are we going to be? 4 years, 3 years this year. Sorry, my timeline isn't that great. But I've been doing this since for 4 years in October, and it's been a wild ride becoming an expert on ABLE accounts and our state-sponsored plan. And it's been a lot of fun.
So before we kind of get into the nuts and bolts of what's going on, can you tell me a reason, what do you like about your job? What do you enjoy about your job?
The best part of my job is the people, and specifically in regards to the capacity in which I'm operating under. So being the director of this plan and talking to the individuals and the family members of individuals who might utilize an Invest ABLE Indiana account, seeing the sort of light go off in their own minds of how great of an impact this can have on their or their loved ones' lives is the best part of my job. And being able to provide and access to, rather, this sort of financial economic empowerment tool is pretty incredible, because up until ABLE accounts were available to the public, for specifically with individuals with disabilities, they were only, in most circumstances, able to save up to $2,000. And when an individual finally realizes that they can have access to and use an ABLE account to save over that and not be kept in poverty, essentially, it's just an incredible thing to see, the positive impact it has on their lives.
And I'm sure for a lot of you, Amy's face is very familiar. She has been all across the state in the past 4 years, at conferences, at meetings. So hopefully you've seen Amy before and talked to her. If not, hopefully you're seeing her again. Maybe now you'll send her an email or pick up the phone. She's a wealth of information and is always willing to talk to people about their individual situation. So you kind of started already talking about my first question, so it's a great segue. Can you share just a brief history of ABLE accounts and why they're important and why they came to be?
Certainly. Essentially, ABLE accounts started with the idea of ABLE accounts, I should say, started with a group of parents sitting around talking about how difficult and frustrating it was that they could not save for their children with disabilities or for a child with a disability in the same way that they could save for a child that wasn't living with a disability. And the frustration that stemmed from not being able to allow for increased savings and even just a little nest egg for their child to build upon as they grew up, especially if those children, those individuals, were receiving means-tested benefits. That the parents just thought, you know, they're never going to be able to accrue any sort of savings or assets, because if they're receiving benefits, they're always going to have to be capped at a certain threshold. So how can we, as parents, work to provide some sort of some savings mechanism for them to save for their future? And so these kitchen table conversations stemmed into larger conversations on a state and federal level, specifically on the federal level, contacting their legislators and putting together the beginnings of what turned into the ABLE Act of 2014.
So how have you seen the use of ABLE accounts change in the past few years?
We've really seen how flexible the usage of ABLE accounts really is. It's not the same as a 529 college savings program, because sometimes you'll hear ABLE accounts also referred to as 529A accounts. And there's also, some of the viewers may be familiar with the 529 college savings program. It's just that two programs were under the same section of the Internal Revenue Code. But ABLE accounts, we've seen them sort of evolve let me kind of step back a little bit. While the federal legislation allowed for a pretty flexible use of ABLE accounts, we've really seen how that flexible usage can be sort of shaped and to help fit each individual's unique circumstances, because no two individuals, whether they live with a disability or without a disability, but certainly considering our audience today, but no two individuals living with a disability are going to face the same needs and the same expenses. So what might be paid for out of one individual's ABLE account may not be the same expenses that another individual who's using an ABLE account would have.
So this is a question I always like to ask people is, what are some of the common myths you hear when people call to talk about ABLE accounts? Because I'm sure you hear a lot of things over and over. I heard I can't do this, or I heard I can do this. So what are some of the myths that you've heard? And then you can hit us with the truth after that and let us know what's really the case with ABLE accounts.
Yeah, so one of the top myths that I'll bust for you right now, and the viewers right now, is that I'll lose my benefits if I have an ABLE account. I can only save so much, up to say $2,000 if I'm receiving certain benefits. Well, no, if you have an ABLE account, you can save over that $2,000 resource limit, well above and beyond it. For example, if you're receiving SSI benefits, you can save up to $100,000. And you can contribute up to $15,000 into your investable account each year. Another myth, a question that I receive, is that an individual must be receiving benefits to have an ABLE account. No, they actually do not have to be receiving benefits. If they are receiving certain benefits like SSI or SSDI and they meet other eligibility criteria, they can open an account. But if they aren't receiving receiving say SSI or SSDI and they're just receiving say housing benefits or Medicaid, then they can also open an ABLE account as long as they meet the eligibility criteria. Additionally, if someone is not receiving any benefits at all, they can still, and they meet the eligibility criteria, they can still open or have an ABLE account. And specifically in those circumstances, it might be just because an individual who's qualified for an ABLE account would like to have another tax advantaged or have a tax advantage savings option available to them. There is an age of onset criteria to be eligible for an ABLE account. And that age of onset of disability to be eligible for an ABLE account is 26 years old. So many individuals think, well, I'm over the age of 26. I'm not eligible for an ABLE account. That's not true. You can be over the age of 26 and still be eligible for an ABLE account, because the eligibility criteria specifically for ABLE is that the age of onset of blindness or disability must have occurred before age 26. If they're receiving SSI or SSDI, they're eligible. But if they're not receiving either of those two benefits and they still meet that age of onset criteria, then they just need to have a doctor's written diagnosis of a functional impairment.
Those are some really big myths to bust. You know, I mean, that's quite a difference of the amount that you can save, the age of onset. Those are some pretty big things. So we're going to make sure that in the description of this video below, we're going to have links to the ABLE account website, link to Amy's organization, and all that information. So we know this is a lot of information to get right now, but we want to make sure that people know where they can go for more information after they watch this. So Amy, you were my 10th interview doing it in the virtual realm. So I'm going to hit you with the question that I ask everybody. So how have things changed for you and your colleagues in the past 4 months or so?
It's this new reality that just doesn't seem to escape us, and it keeps evolving, and we keep having to be flexible with new regulations and safety precautions and that sort of thing. So I've been, you know, as many individuals out there, me and my colleagues have been working remotely and doing a lot of virtual learning and webinars. And one of the positives in the ABLE world, and I'd say even for my own, in the capacity in which I function as a one-woman show running this program in our state, is that I actually have the potential for greater reach in doing these sort of virtual meetings and webinars and operating on these different virtual platforms. It's easier for more people to attend these virtual meetings, these webinars, as opposed to having to get themselves out the door to get to a meeting that at a time that may not work well for them, or having to find childcare to be able to get to an in-person meeting. So I'm hoping that we, as the general public, can enable administrators are operating in a different capacity to be more inclusive and making sure that we are doing our very best in these circumstances. And you touched on earlier about putting the links under the video. I'm happy to provide my contact information and phone number, email, that individuals can reach out to me if they want to walk through their own personal scenario. I'm happy to talk with them about their unique circumstances.
So kind of going down the COVID path, we'll just go there for a little while. How has COVID impacted the way ABLE accounts work, or how expenditures are done, how the money can be used? Can you talk a little bit about that for me?
So the current circumstances with COVID and the pandemic hasn't really changed the way ABLE accounts can be used, because the qualified disability-related expenses for which ABLE accounts must be used for still remain the same. We continue to get additional guidance from Social Security Administration and other federal entities. But more recently, under the circumstances of COVID, surrounding COVID, we've seen the stimulus checks that have come out to individuals. And they're technically called economic impact payments that were allowed for under the CARES Act. that passed in the just a few months ago. And so specifically in regards to those stimulus payments that go to individuals, I've gotten questions about, and I'm kind of maybe getting ahead of myself a little bit, but how can I use that money? Can I use that money to fund an ABLE account? And the answer is yes. If you have an existing ABLE account, you can use that stimulus payment to fund your current ABLE account. If you don't have an InvestAble Indiana account and you've been wanting to take that step to opening one, this might be an excellent opportunity for you to take that next step into opening up an InvestAble account for you or your loved one. And I recognize that many individuals have received these stimulus payments already. Some may not have just yet, many individuals could very easily go out and spend their stimulus payment right away because of whatever expenses that they might and costs that they might be incurring. But if you have some or all of it left over, or would like to use just $25 of that to open your InvestAble account, you can do that. I was doing a webinar, and a mother that had attended that webinar contacted me afterwards, and she said, you know, you're mentioning of using the stimulus dollars to open up an ABLE account finally was enough motivation or you know, not incentive, but enough motivation for me to finally take that step to opening up my daughter's InvestAble account. And so we talked through the process of how she could do that, and was finally happy to be able to do that for her daughter.
So can you talk about how those stimulus payments impact benefits such as Social Security or SSI, SSDI, and ABLE accounts? Like, how does that impact? Because we talked earlier about how you can only have so much in savings or so much in assets. So how are these COVID stimulus payments impacting those things?
Yes, so if an individual is receiving means tested benefits, they have to use that stimulus payment within the next year, within this year that we're in right now. Otherwise, if there's money left over from that stimulus payment, it's going to count against their asset or resource limit that those means tested benefits impose. So if an individual doesn't want to spend it all at once, then they could, like I said, start to save in an InvestAble Indiana account and save for whether it be short-term savings or long-term savings goals or even basic living expenses. It's really allows for someone to put that money to the side to save it as a bit of a nest egg, or to start to save a little bit of a nest egg, instead of having to go out and spend it right away if they don't necessarily need to. And I recognize that some individuals will need to spend it right away. No two individual circumstances are exactly the same.
So if I have my stimulus payment, I haven't spent it yet, I don't need to spend it, but I would like to, I'm sorry, thinking here. So if the situation is that I am wanting to keep the money, I don't need to spend it, but I don't want it to impact my disability pay, my SSI, SSDI. If I put it in an ABLE account, it won't count against my assets, right? It won't count.
Yes. So if the money isn't spent within the year after receiving it, then it would count as a resource to them after that year time period has passed. So if they don't need to spend it right away, they can do a couple of things. Hang on to it and just make sure you spend it within the following year, or go ahead and put it into an InvestAble Indiana account. I will say that a pro to going ahead and opening up an Investable Indiana account as opposed to keeping it in a personal checking or savings account is that by using one of the savings investment and savings options through Investable Indiana, you will have over the next year the potential to see growth on your investment. So if you keep it in a traditional checking account, you're very likely not going to have the opportunity to see growth on your savings. And with the different sort of investment and savings options that we have in our state's plan, you do have the potential to see interest earned on your investment.
So I feel like we've kind of covered what we wanted to cover in this interview today with specifically COVID and the stimulus payments and ABLE accounts. So hopefully we've generated some interest and some people wanting to learn more about their individual circumstance or what they can do for themselves or their family. So I know you said you'd share your contact info, which is great. Where else can people go to learn more about ABLE accounts and maybe educate themselves a little bit more before they call you with their specific questions?
Absolutely. They can go online to our website, and that website is in.savewithable.com. Again, that is in.savewithable.com. We have a lot of information available on the website, a lot of different resources available, and enrollment is also actually done. If they would prefer to receive an enrollment kit sent to them, they can make that request as well. I'll go ahead and give the number to customer service, and I'll go ahead, if it's okay with you, go ahead and give my contact information in case people would like to reach out to me as well. The number for customer service is 1-888-609-3457. And my cell phone number, because since we're working in the virtual or work remote environment, I have my cell phone on me, and you can reach me at 1-317-473-2035. Or you can also send an email to me at acorbin@tos.in.gov. And I will add in real quick, if you want additional material sent to you, feel free to reach out to me. If you're part of a group or an organization that would like a presentation, or if you would just like to walk through an enrollment demonstration, I can do that as well. We can work with whatever your personal needs are, or the needs of someone that you're working with, or an organization that you're affiliated with, to help get more information out there.
And again, we'll make sure we put all of that information in writing in the description of the video so you have access to it. So we also are going to have another interview with Amy just about the basics of ABLE. So if you have not watched that yet, go back to our YouTube channel, check it out. Again, I'll also do a link to that video in the video description below, so you can link over there to our other interview. So with that, Amy, thank you so much for doing this with us. Thank you, as usual, to our interpreters. We're so grateful to have you here. And with that, we'll tell everybody to have a good day. Check out ABLE. Contact Amy with your questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.